Welcome if you dare. You've stepped into a world where shadows whisper, where every creak in the floor holds a secret. And tonight, you're about to hear a story that will haunt your dreams. Before we begin, make sure you're not alone, or you're ready to uncover what really happened in today's story. Don't forget to subscribe if you're brave enough, because what lurks in this channel is far more terrifying. Let's begin.
The dying embers of a sun setting beyond the whispering woods cast long, skeletal fingers across the valley, painting the thatched roofs and crooked chimneys of Ormswell in hues of bruised violet and deep ochre, nestled like a forgotten secret between the brooding, ancient forest and the perpetually mist-shrouded valleys. The village possessed a quaint charm that masked a deeper, older chill. Generations had lived and died beneath its watchful gaze, each whispering the same warnings to wide-eyed children who inevitably grew into cautious adults. Yet, it was the forbidden tales, murmured over crackling hearths on winter nights, spoken of in hushed tones near the old stone well, that truly captured the young imagination. Foremost among these spectral legends stood the solitary sentinel atop Black Hill, the enchanted tree. This was no ordinary oak or ash, gnarled and twisted like a petrified giant in agony. Its bark resembled weathered dragon scales, dark as dried blood and deeply fissured. Legends claimed it wasn't wood that gave it form, but the very essence of those lost to Ormswell's shadowed past. Wayward travelers swallowed by the woods, villagers who vanished on moonless nights, souls consumed by unspoken bargains. Their spirits, it was said, were bound within its fibrous heartwood, whispering secrets on the wind that sighed through its skeletal branches. And on one night only, under the cold, watchful eye of the hunter's moon during All Hallows Eve, the tree was rumored to awaken, not to menace but to offer a single wish, granted to the one brave or foolhardy enough to lay bare their deepest desire upon its icy bark. The elders spoke of it with averted eyes and trembling hands, their warnings laced with a primal fear they dared not articulate fully. Leave the hill be, they rasp. The tree listens, but its gifts are hollow echoes. Yet, for the children, steeped in the reckless alchemy of youth and the irresistible pull of the unknown, the warnings were merely kindling for their curiosities. Here, the mantle of leadership fell to Maeve, 12 summers old, with hair like spun midnight and eyes reflecting the fathomless dark of the sky. She possessed a fierce intelligence and a restlessness that often led her into trouble. Her bravery was less a shield and more a blazing torch, sometimes illuminating paths best left dark. Tonight, that torch burned bright, gathering the others near the crumbling old millstone on the village green. A motley crew ranging from wide-eyed 8-year-olds to skeptical 14-year-olds. She outlined her plan with a quiet intensity that silenced even the older boys, Liam and Tomas, who usually met village lore with derisive snorts. "It's just wood," Maeve insisted, her voice low but firm, cutting through the nervous chatter. She deliberately met Liam's challenging gaze. "Old wood and older stories, that's all. Fear makes fools of us. Tonight, we climb Black Hill. Tonight, we touch the bark. Tonight, we prove there's nothing to fear but fear itself." Her words, echoing the dismissive logic of adults who hadn't dared themselves, resonated with the group. The allure of the forbidden, the chance to be the generation that pierced the veil of superstition, was intoxicating. As dusk surrendered completely to night, a thick, spectral fog began to coil up from the valleys, swallowing the lower slopes of Black Hill whole. It moved with unnatural purpose, tendrils wrapping around gnarled roots and weathered rocks like a ghostly shroud. The air grew heavy, laden with the scent of damp, decaying leaves and the distant, acrid tang of wood smoke from unseen hearths, a smell that seemed to carry whispers on its currents. Maeve led the way, her small lantern casting a feeble, bobbing circle of light that barely pierced the gloom. Behind her, the group moved as one organism, breaths misting in the chill, hearts drumming a frantic rhythm against ribs. The crunch of frost-kissed grass underfoot, the rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth, the oppressive silence of the fog. Each sound was amplified, each shadow a potential watcher. The thrill of rebellion was now laced with a creeping dread that made their skin prickle. Emerging from the fog's embrace onto the barren crown of Black Hill felt like stepping onto another world. The enchanted tree dominated the space, a hulking silhouette against the bruised velvet of the night sky. Moonlight, pale and cold, seemed not to illuminate it but to be sucked into its dark, convoluted form. Its branches weren't mere limbs. They were talons, arthritic fingers clawing desperately at the indifferent stars, casting writhing, monstrous shadows that danced on the mist below. The air around it was perceptibly colder, a deep, bone-aching chill that had nothing to do with the season. Maeve felt it first, a physical pressure, a weight of centuries pressing down. The whispers weren't just in the wind anymore. They felt like a vibration in the ground beneath her worn boots. She reached the massive trunk first, the rough bark looking like frozen lava flows in the moonlight. Up close, the scale was overwhelming. The scent here was different too. Ozone, ancient soil, and something faintly metallic like old blood. Hesitation flickered across her face, a primal instinct screaming retreat. She felt the gaze of her friends, a mix of terror, awe, and desperate hope pinned on her. Oliver, her closest friend, small for his age but sharp as a tack, shivered violently beside her, his teeth chattering. "It's not right, Maeve," he whispered, his voice thin and strained. "It's colder than ice, colder than death." Maeve swallowed hard, the defiance flaring again, battling the fear. "Here goes nothing," she breathed, the words barely audible, a challenge thrown at the darkness. With a surge of will, she pressed her bare palm flat against the gnarled surface for a heartbeat. Nothing. Then, the world shifted. A low groan emanated from deep within the tree, a sound felt more than heard, vibrating up through Maeve's arm and into her chest. The bark beneath her hand pulsed with a sudden, sickly warmth that quickly turned icy again. Then, a faint, phosphorescent glow began to seep from the deepest crevices, illuminating the intricate patterns of the bark in shades of corpse light green and bruised purple. The shadows cast by the branches didn't just dance. They detached. They flowed like liquid smoke across the trunk's surface, swirling, coalescing. Faces formed. Not peaceful visages, but faces locked in silent, eternal screams of terror, agony, and profound sorrow. Eyes wide and sightless, mouths gaping in soundless pleas. The lost souls of Ormswell, etched in living shadow upon the tree's hide. A collective gasp tore from the children's throats, a sound of pure, unadulterated horror. Eric, the logical one, usually armed with reason and skepticism, stumbled back a step, his face ashen. "It's impossible," he stammered, his voice cracking. Is it granting the wish? Is this part of it?" His logic was a drowning man clutching at straws. Maeve, her hands still glued to the terrifyingly alive bark, felt a jolt like lightning shoot through her. "I don't know," she cried out, her voice raw with a terror that mirrored the faces before her. The tree answered her. The incoherent murmur that had haunted the edges of their perception surged. It wasn't wind, it was voices. 100, 1,000 overlapping whispers rose into a discordant, mournful chant. The sound was ancient, filled with longing, regret, and a desperate, clawing hunger. The shadowy faces on the bark began to move, their mouths opening and closing in time with the chant. The cacophony wasn't just heard, it vibrated in their teeth, resonated in their bones. Mev understood, with a terrifying clarity that bypassed thought, that this was no mere wish-granter. This was a repository, a prison, a consumer of souls and their deepest, most fervent desires. It offered fulfillment, yes, but it demanded sustenance. The dissonant chant began to weave itself into a melody, hauntingly beautiful, unbearably sad. It snaked into their minds, bypassing reason and wrapping around their very souls. The faces, the chill, the fear, it all blurred. The children swayed, their eyes glazing over, caught in a powerful, hypnotic trance of visions, vivid and overwhelming, flooded their senses. Oliver, not just atop a mountain, but clinging to a sheer, ice glazed, peak in a howling blizzard. The summit shimmered just above, bathed in golden sunlight, promising warmth and triumph. But the ledge beneath his feet crumbled endlessly, the promised view perpetually receding, leaving him in an eternal, exhausting climb towards an unreachable goal. The price, relentless, unending struggle. Eric, surrounded not just by books, but by towering, shifting labyrinths of ancient, leather-bound tomes in a library that stretched into infinite, dusty darkness. Knowledge flowed into him. Yes, complex equations, forgotten histories, arcane secrets. But it was a torrent, overwhelming, drowning him. He saw answers to mysteries that shattered his understanding of the world. Truths so terrible they burned his mind. The price, unbearable, sanity-shattering knowledge. Mev, she stood not just against a storm, but on a cliff edge facing an oncoming wall of pure, chaotic darkness, a storm of screaming winds, jagged lightning, and swirling, formless terrors. She felt strong, unbreakable, her arms raised defiantly. But within the maelstrom, she saw glimpses, fleeting, horrifying images, her home crumbling, familiar faces twisted in fear, a profound, echoing loneliness. The price, strength forged in isolation and loss, the burden of seeing the true horror beneath the world's surface. The visions were intoxicating, offering the very core of their desires, but woven through the beauty, the triumph, the knowledge, was a thread of profound wrongness, a chilling undercurrent of despair and corruption. The tree wasn't just grunting, it was tasting, searching their souls for the raw material of their longing, promising to fulfill it in a way that would leave them hollow, bound, or broken. It's taking something, Oliver gasped within his vision, his voice thick with the exhaustion of his endless climb, the golden light now feeling mocking. There's a price, a terrible price. His words, laced with the visceral terror of his experience, pierced the collective trance like a shard of ice. Mev felt the truth of it resonate deep within her. The strength in her vision felt cold, alien, but with a sacrifice she couldn't name but instinctively recoiled from. The tree's hunger was palpable now, a sucking void beneath the alluring melody. He's right, Mev cried, tearing her gaze from the swirling darkness of her own vision. Her voice was a ragged shout against the haunting song. It wants more than a wish. We have to break free, now. It took a monumental effort of will, a collective surge of primal fear overriding the mesmerizing call. With a sound like tearing cloth, the psychic connection snapped. Maev wrenched her hand from the bark. Instantly, the phosphorescent glow winked out. The swirling shadows collapsed back into inert patterns. The faces froze, their silent screams eternal once more. The haunting melody cut off, leaving a silence so profound it roared in their ears. Thick and heavy as the fog itself, the tree stood silent. Yet the sense of a slumbering, ancient malevolence lingered, a deep, slow pulse radiating from its roots into the cold earth. Panic, pure and unadulterated, seized them. No words were needed. They turned as one and fled, stumbling, scrambling, falling. down the treacherous slope of Black Hill. Twigs lashed at their faces, roots snagged their feet, but they didn't stop. Terrified glances thrown over shoulders confirmed the tree remained, a stark, monstrous silhouette against the moonlit sky, its shadow now stretching impossibly long and thin, reaching like a dark finger towards the sleeping roofs of Ormswell. They didn't stop running until they reached the relative safety of the village's outermost cottages, collapsing in a gasping, trembling heap behind Mrs. Gable's overgrown hydrangea bushes. Tears streaked dirty faces. Breaths came in ragged sobs. The shared terror forged an instant, unbreakable bond. Never, gasped Liam, the skeptic, his bravado utterly shattered, his eyes wide with residual horror. Never again. Not for all the wishes in the world, whimpered little Anya, burying her face in Oliver's side. We tell no one, Eric stated, his voice shaky but firm, his logical mind grappling with the illogical horror. They wouldn't believe, or worse, they might try themselves. Agreed, Maeve rasped, pushing sweat-dampened hair from her forehead. Her midnight eyes, wide and shadowed, held a depth they hadn't possessed before. We make a pact. We stay away from the hill, from the stories, from the tree, forever. Nods, frantic and solemn, passed between them. It was a pact sealed in shared trauma. Maeve lingered last, as the others crept towards their homes. Standing before her own darkened cottage door, she paused, her gaze irresistibly drawn back towards the black bulk of the hill, now swallowed by the fog and night. She couldn't see the tree, but she could feel it. Not a menacing pulse now, but a low, pervasive hum, a vibration in the very air, a constant, subtle reminder of the boundary they had crossed and the ancient power that slumbered, waiting. It wasn't just fear she felt. It was a dreadful, awestruck understanding. We'll honor the tales, she whispered into the night, her breath misting before her. The words weren't just for her friends, but for the unseen presence on the hill. Some secrets, some hungers are too old, too deep, some doors shouldn't be opened. As Ormswell slumbered, unaware of the small, terrified souls who had trespassed on the edge of the uncanny, the moon continued its cold vigil. Its silver light bathed the land, catching the dewdrops on cobwebs like scattered diamonds. And high, on Black Hill, within the impossibly twisted branches of the enchanted tree, the captured shadows seemed to shift minutely, a faint, collective sigh, like the settling of dust in a tomb. Might have been the wind, or perhaps it was the echo of ancient truths, of bargains made and prices paid, whispering through the ages, a chilling lullaby for the village below, a reminder that curiosity, however brave, dances perilously close to the abyss, where wishes are not gifts, but snares woven from the darkest threads of longing and despair. The children of Ormswell had learned the lesson etched in silent screams upon ancient bark. Some mysteries are best left veiled, for the cost of unveiling them can scar the soul forever. The tree remained, patient and eternal, its roots deep in the valley's secrets, waiting for the next generation's restless hearts to hear the siren song of the forbidden. The whispered pact, sworn in the trembling dark beneath Mrs. Gable's hydrangeas, proved a fragile shield against the erosion of time and the insidious nature of forgetting. Seasons cycled. Snow, pure and silencing, blanketed the scars of their flight from Black Hill, only to melt and reveal green shoots that seemed to mock the horror festering beneath the surface. For within the children, especially Maeve, the wounds remained open. The visions granted by the tree weren't mere nightmares. They were seeds alien and potent planted deep in the soil of their souls, germinating unseen in the dark. Outwardly, life in Ormswell resumed its uneasy rhythm, oscillating between superficial calm and the undercurrent of old whispers. The Children avoided the hill with a fervor bordering on superstition, deterring far round even the paths leading towards it. Liam and Tomas, the older boys whose scoffing bravado had shattered that night, now startled at the rustle of dry leaves. Eric, the logician, buried himself deeper in books, but his eyes now hunted answers in forbidden sections, tomes on shadow lore, psychic phenomena, the nature of hunger beyond the physical. Oliver, haunted by his vision of the endlessly receding summit, stopped climbing even the gnarled apple tree in the schoolyard. Little Anya cried in the dark for no reason anyone could name. Mev in the cracks within, but Mev was the most profoundly fractured. Her midnight eyes, once bright with daring, had become windows onto an inner tempest. She no longer led adventures. She retreated into the dusty corners of the village's small library, poring over crumbling texts on mythical flora, underworld trees, and the ancient rites of All Hallows Eve. She was trying to understand, to rationalize, what her flesh and spirit had touched. Fear was there. Yes, a cold stone in her gut, but it warred with something else, more seductive and terrifying. Temptation. The echo of the vision the tree had gifted her, that intoxicating surge of limitless power against the howling void thrummed in her bones like a second pulse. Lying awake at night, she'd stretch her hand into the darkness, imagining the cold, scaled bark beneath her fingertips once more. What if, the insidious thought whispered, what if I were stronger this time? What if I could master the vision, hold the power without the cost? Then, the subtle changes began. 1. The pursuing shadows, at the periphery of her vision. Shadows seemed to coalesce and dart with unnatural speed, gathering at the edge of sight only to dissolve when she turned her head. She blamed exhaustion. The flicker of candlelight. 2. Whispers on the wind, a stray breeze, carrying the scent of damp earth, would sometimes seem to hold faint echoes of the tree's mournful chant, a discordant melody, woven into the rustle of leaves, barely audible, yet enough to make her heart stutter. 3. The tree's inhalation, on nights of profound quiet, especially under a full moon. Mav began to feel a faint, subterranean pulse vibrating up through the soles of her feet. It wasn't the heartbeat of the earth. It felt alien, rhythmic, like the slow, deep inhalation of something vast and slumbering far below. She imagined the enchanted tree's roots, serpentine and insatiable, spreading beneath the entire village, breathing in the scent of want. One afternoon, as Murph traced a cryptic illustration in a mildewed bestiary in the library's deepest alcove, old Mother Elderward approached. The crone lived in a tumble-down cottage near the Whispering Woods, shunned by most as one who conversed with shadows, her milky eyes fixed on Maiv with unnerving intensity. "You touched a shadow, didn't ye, child?" she rasped, her voice like dry leaves skittering on stone. Maiv flinched. "What do you mean?" The old woman's surprisingly strong, gnarled hand clamped onto Maiv's forearm. "The tree, on the hill. You were the one laid hand upon it last All Hallows. I see it in your eyes. The shadow hunger that clings." Maiv tried to pull away. "I don't know what you're talking about." Mother Elderward sighed, a sound of deep, ancient sorrow. "Want? It's the blood that waters its roots. It gives you a taste. Then it wants to drink you dry. It's had a sip of your spirit, girl. And it's always hungry. Starve it out. Pluck the seed of what if from your mind afore it sprouts and draws its roots back to ye. Or it draws you back to it. With that, she melted back into the library's gloom, leaving Maeve trembling, the warning ringing in her ears like a tolling bell. As the next All Hallows Eve drew inexorably closer, the signs intensified. Maeve's vision that intoxicating power against the primordial storm recurred in her dreams, sharper, more vivid, more seductive. It wasn't just power. It was raw, coursing energy, a dark current flowing through her. making her feel like the axis of the world, capable of pushing back the encroaching void itself. And within the dream, a voice, not formed of words but of pure, dark sensation, whispered, "Come just one touch, I'll show you control, no fear this time." On the night of October 30th, the air grew unnaturally cold. Fog, thick and purposeful, once again crept from the valleys, carrying the scent of wet loam and the faint, metallic tang of ozone that reminded her of the tree. Maeve stood at her small bedroom window, staring out towards Black Hill, swallowed by the mist. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Mother Elderworth's fear warred, with the siren song thrumming in her very blood. The pact with her friends felt like a betrayal of her own desperate yearning. But the pull to reclaim that feeling of power to master it this time was a physical ache, a thirst in a desert of fear. She didn't need a lantern this time. A different kind of compass guided her. She slipped from the house like a wraith, avoiding the streets, following hidden paths through the frosted fields. The fog was dense, cloying, but she felt the way. The climb felt easier, almost as if the hill itself was drawing her upwards. The tree was waiting. It seemed larger in the cloying mist, more twisted, more hungry in the pallid moonlight that struggled to penetrate. The subterranean pulse she felt was stronger here, resonating in her own chest. The faces in the bark seemed to shift slowly, their sightless eyes tracking her ascent. "What do you truly want, Maeve?" The voice wasn't the tree's. It was her own, distorted, laced with that dark power to be strong, to be safe, to never fear again. "Come take it. All you need do is touch." Maeve raised her hands slowly. She remembered the terror, Mother Elderworth's warning, her friends' shattered face, but she remembered the absolute power more. The wand was a physical thing, a crushing pressure in her chest that her fingertips hovered a hair's breadth from the ice-cold, scale-like bark. The world held its breath, then, faintly, as if through a long tunnel, she heard Enya's muffled sobs in the night. She saw Oliver's face, pale with the memory of the unending climb. She felt Eric's hand pulling her away in desperate flight. She saw Mother Elderworth's knowing, sorrowful eyes. Was this the price? Power bought by feeding an ancient hunger? By becoming just another screaming face trapped in the bark one day? Her hand snapped back, as if the bark had burned her. She stumbled back to paces, trembling not just with fear, but with the immense effort of resisting the demonic lure. The tree made no sound, but Maeve felt a wave of cold, furious disappointment, a profound, lethal frustration radiate from it, like killing frost. "No," she whispered, her voice raw but resolute. "My strength, my safety, I'll find it elsewhere, not with you. I won't feed you." She turned and fled back down the hill, but this flight was different. It wasn't escape from an external terror. It was flight from the dark part of herself that had drawn her there. She knew the tree wouldn't forget. The one it had nearly claimed was a scar on her soul now, a vulnerability that might attract the creeping shadows or call the hungry roots to her again. In the future, Maeve returned to her bed, but sleep remained, elusive. The intoxicating sense of power had vanished, leaving a hollow ache, a profound weariness. But the shadow hunger Mother Elderworth spoke of hadn't disappeared. It was fainter, pushed back by her will, but present. The whispers on the wind were clearer now. The subterranean pulse resonated in her chest when she lay still. She had escaped the trap this time, but she had left something of herself on that hillside, an imprint of her deepest, most desperate desire. And the tree, that ancient, patient entity, now knew the specific taste of Maeve's spirit. It would wait. Human want doesn't die easily, and roots grow far and slow. There were always other hungry souls in Ormswell, or perhaps in years to come, when the children grew older and forgot, or when a new, irrepressible yearning was born. The story wasn't over. Maeve had avoided immediate doom. but she had opened a door, subtle, psychic connection to the ancient power on the hill. Now, she had to live with this invisible tether, fight the temptation that might surge stronger in a moment of weakness, and guard herself and perhaps her village from the tree that never forgot a touch and never forgave a morsel offered and then withdrawn. The price hadn't been fully paid, and the delicate dance between curiosity and caution had become a daily battle within the heart of a girl who had once been too brave